Hello and welcome into the RotoWire Fantasy Soccer Podcast. My name is Andrew Laird, Senior Soccer Editor of RotoWire, joined, as always, during the Euros by Ryan Belongia. And today we're talking about Friday's two-game quarterfinal slate between Switzerland and Spain and Belgium and Italy. Ryan, I was just commenting to you, it was nice to have a few days off from losing money.
Yeah, nice benefit of not having a slate means we didn't have to lose any more money. But it was nice having a break, ready to get back after it. Still a few slates left to make up for a couple bad weeks, at least for me and you. But all it takes is one slate to make life fair again. So let's hope that one's tomorrow.
Hey, that's what I keep telling myself. Everything can be made up on one slate, which is why we keep playing slates, because it could be the next one. And so that would be it.
And that's the nature of these GPPs, especially with the top heavy payouts. You're not going to win a lot of them, but as long as you win a few, you should be okay. That's
right. That's right. Finishing third or fourth is not likely to make up for what we're trying to make up for. So we're playing a win here. So yeah, jumping into this two-game slate, like I said, Switzerland and Spain, Belgium and Italy. Unsurprisingly, Spain the biggest favorite against Switzerland's side that I think is kind of been a little better than people expected, or maybe just gotten better results. And then we have Italy favored against Belgium, two teams that have been very good during this tournament. Belgium obviously dealing with some pretty significant injury issues, which is probably why Italy are such a strong favorite. Do you think the odds are right?
Yeah, they seem pretty accurate. Spain and Switzerland playing in Russia, Spain minus 153, Italy, Belgium playing in Germany, and Italy plus 129. There's a slightly higher total in the Spain game. Spain are the biggest favorites. When I first looked at the slate, I guess I kept coming back to the question of, is this one of those slates where we just kind of get as much Spain as we can? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, early in the tournament, getting as much Spain as you can was an absolute disaster. Obviously, it was not so much in their past few games. So recency allows us to say, like, yeah, let's get as much Spain as possible. We have to remember that similar to the games that we just had, like if there are any draws, then after 90 minutes and we go to 120, based on the odds, it seems more likely that Italy and Belgium could go to extra time, but that's obviously no guarantee. So yeah, I think most people will try to get Spain. I think that's where a lot of people will go. That game seems more likely to go off, though, right?
Which one? The Spain game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, so part of the reason I got there also, we'll bring up KDB when we get to midfield, but he's not expected to start. And if he's going to be on the bench, it would pretty much just take away all my interest in Belgium. I mean, except for Lukaku basically, and maybe a defender, but that's more of a GPP play. So if you eliminate Belgium, and then, we've been avoiding teams against Spain. So, we're not going to love Switzerland here as the biggest underdog and not going to see much possession. So it kind of narrows it down to Spain and Italy. And I guess with the exception of Ferran Torres, Italy's a bit more expensive. So it kind of just leads to starting with Spain. And yeah, like you said, it seems like the more likely game to go off. Italy's been very good defensively, good in possession, and I mean, Belgium too. That's a tough matchup. I mean,
yeah.
You can absolutely see it 0-0 into the second half. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
The difficulty I had when building lineups and I think this is going to be a problem for a lot of people, cash and GPP, is that you are definitely going to have to play people you don't want to play. And that's both because of positional issues and based on guys you do want to play, you kind of end up just pushing yourself in a specific path. I think that applies more in cash games just because the targets are a little closer.
Right.
Your player pool is probably not as big in cash. But I went through like a number of builds and I'm like, man, I don't like any of these. And it was basically like, I don't want to play this guy. So how do I get out of him? And the path was just another guy I didn't want to play, or to somebody I wanted to play, and then I had to toss somebody else, and that I didn't want to play whoever filled in there. Like lineups I think are going to be really ugly on Friday.
Yeah, I was going through the same issues, and what I ended on usually was deciding that, at least from a cash perspective, there weren't like mandatory spend up options or necessarily great expensive defenders from a floor perspective. So I thought there were a few places you could pay down there, and there was plenty of midfielders that I think are okay to play. So I sort of just saved money at defender and then played everybody I want. But let's start it forward. Insigne, most expensive option, played 108 minutes last game. Majority of set pieces, Berardi takes some too. Comparing the two, Berardi's more likely to get subbed. And yeah, I think you just start with Insigne. Is that where you are?
It is. I don't love it, to be honest. Just putting that much salary into a guy who might not get a ton of set pieces. They are favored, so like I get it. I think a lot of people will go that way just because as we continue down this forward list, the cash pool is pretty light. I was actually curious if you think Berardi's the lowest owned of the three Italy forwards in tournaments. Like it seems like if cash it's going to be Insigne, then most people, if you want Italy exposure, you go to Immobile because he's likely to score the goals, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I definitely would expect Berardi to be the lowest of the three. And it makes me want to take a shot on him more for tournaments. And he's like, he won't be very popular. So if you play multiple lineups, you wouldn't have to have a ton of exposure to be over the field. Like just to continue about Insigne and those other forwards, like you said, just a matchup against Belgium, we're not like looking to pay 10K for Insigne. I definitely agree with that. But the Spain options, Ferran Torres is expensive, and Morata's the only other one. So at least from like a cash perspective and a floor perspective, Insigne just seems safe, and it seems like you can afford him. But yeah, for tournaments, yeah, I like taking a chance on someone like Berardi. I think he'll be like considerably less popular than the other two. Do you feel the same?
Totally. It just basically the reason is you have the floor reason to play Insigne. Not that he doesn't have upside, but like he's the strongest floor play on this team. Immobile has the goal odds, and then you're like, and there's Berardi. So like anytime that you have like and then there's this guy, he's going to be the lowest owned of the three. So where do you put Dani Olmo? I don't think we expect him to start, but if he starts, I feel like he is also highly likely to get subbed. So you're not like Morata has some playing time safety, I feel like.
Yep.
But none of them in cash, at least.
Yeah. Dani Olmo, the price tag's really cheap compared to the other guys on this slate. So like 70 minutes even for that price tag on the biggest favorite. Yeah, I like that. Definitely for tournaments. And I mean, you could make I think you could even make an argument for it in cash. I mean, he gets enough peripherals, and I'm not sure where else you really want to go. I wasn't going to play Immobile in cash, but I guess the next guy I considered was Morata. Not a guy we normally think of as like a safe play, but center forward on the biggest favorite, and you know, he's like their only true number 9. So like you said, you know, his playing time feels safe, and he's got the highest goal odds on, goal odds on the slate. So seems okay. What do you think?
It feels like a poor man's Harry Kane.
Mm-hmm.
And he's actually cheaper than Kane, so I guess that works in his favor. But there's no way I play Morata in cash.
Yeah, I agree.
There's really only one guy I looked after Insigne.
Okay.
It wasn't from Spain.
Okay. I'm interested to hear who that is. So yeah, I agree that Morata is like a poor man's Harry Kane. And then what I would say is he's pretty cheap at 8,400, at least relatively cheap. And like comparing him to someone like Kane and Lukaku, I definitely see more floor points just from the way Spain play compared to, like, you know, England don't create chances. So Kane, I don't know, he seems a lot riskier. But yeah, anyways, so no Morata. Where are you looking for, or who are you looking at for second forward?
So I think the one place people go, and I think it's a giant mistake, is to Mertens.
Oh,
and Mertens has been absolutely horrific in this tournament. He's 6,400 against Italy, likely to be subbed. But I think that's where people will look. I don't think they'll go there.
Okay.
But if you look at Mertens and then you just go one spot down, you get Briel and Bolo, who we don't expect Switzerland to have a ton of the ball, but we've seen him put up, 7 to 10 points in every game except the Italy one. And you could make the argument that this game, like, Spain doesn't have Italy's defense, but they probably have more possession. So those things don't work in Mbolo's favor. But I think Switzerland can make things hard for Spain with Mbolo. And at his price, and he's not that goal dependent. He's unlikely to score a goal anyway. But I think he's the pay down guy instead of Mertens, there's really nobody else down there.
Yeah. Agree 100% that, like, I much prefer Mbolo to Mertens. I want to say just Mertens is a mistake. You're going to lose when he scores 1 point. And I mean, if De Bruyne is on the bench, he's likely to come off first. I just see that he's averaging 1.6 fantasy points. I mean, you can expect that if he against Italy in a tough matchup. But yeah, so on to Mbolo. I agree with everything you said. In some ways, the matchup is better than the matchup against Italy. And the salary is very cheap. So if we're comparing him to these other goal-dependent forwards, yeah, he makes a lot of sense in cash. And yeah, he would just let you do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup. So I agree with that. I think he's a good tournament play too. He's not going to be that popular. And got to give my guy Seferovic a shout out too. I
was just going to bring him up.
Yep. You can definitely play him in tournaments. Two nice headers against France. If Switzerland score, he's got a good chance to be involved in it. Yeah, so I like going there for tournaments as well.
I don't want to beat a dead horse on the Mertens thing, but there are only 4 guys on Belgium who are averaging fewer points per game than he is. It's Dennis Praet, Christian Benteke, Hans Van Aken, and Michy Batshuayi. That's
and only one of the
right.
And only one of those guys has seen the field, maybe. Yeah.
If maybe they all have like a minute. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, you're right. I see. Yeah, Hans Van Aken has a minute. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Yannick Carrasco is averaging 1.9. Like coming into the tournament, we said in the opening game, like KDB was going to be out, so let's get Mertens and Carrasco for the set pieces, and they've literally been Belgium's worst fantasy players this term.
Yep. I remember that. Yeah, Yannick Carrasco was maybe the most popular player at first slate. But yeah, they've really disappointed. And yeah, just a little like this matchup against Italy. You know, I guess we should say, because I keep saying assuming, like, are we assuming that KDB is just going to be on the bench and sub on, or do you know anything about his health?
We've heard nothing. I think it's more likely that he is on the bench and doesn't play than he starts.
Yeah.
So
I would just like, if KDB is on the bench, I'm going to assume that he's going to come on. Okay. And I'm also going to assume that their goal will basically just be to keep it 0-0 until the second half. They're a different team without KDB. I mean, we saw them really struggle against Finland, and then KDB came on and they turned it up. So yeah, that just makes me like these Belgium guys even less.
Right.
Yeah, Mertens or Carrasco. And I guess the last thing I'll say about Mertens is I can't think he's going to be very popular. I mean, other people are thinking all of this stuff that we're thinking. Yeah. And for 6,400, of course he could score a goal. So I think he's okay in tournaments, especially considering he's the same price as those Switzerland forwards. And, you know, how worse can he really be? I mean, worse for sure, but he could still score a goal.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, that he definitely should not be ignored in tournaments because, yeah, if everybody else is ignoring him, that's the reason to play him. Simple as that. But man, I don't want to play him.
No, I don't either.
So midfield, we obviously most likely don't have De Bruyne. I assume they're the late game too, so it makes it a little difficult. Ideally, we get some news beforehand, but today would be his first day training fully, if he trained at all. We don't know yet if he's trained. Given how he's played in the last few games, I assume Sarabia is going to be owned everywhere, cash and GPP, and I think that's fine. Like, I don't even think he's that great of a GPP fade because he does enough and you can just differentiate somewhere else. Where do you see that?
Yep. Agree. KDB. Yeah. I think it's just, like you said, hopefully we'll have some news, but if we don't, I think it's just too risky to plan for that. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking for cash specifically. And, I think I would just prefer Sarabia anyways. Like you said, 7,300, nice price, a roll on set pieces and tons of open play value. Goals in back-to-back games. Yeah, he's like, yeah, a good tournament play too. Like you said, you can fade him if you want, but like he's one of the better plays on the slate, I would think, just considering everything, his price, his goal upside, his position, his floor. So yeah, for cash, I think that's where I would start. And I'd probably just play Koke with him. he was great last game. He almost scored too. He actually should have scored. He had the best chance of the game. Made a run through the middle and just was one-on-one with the keeper and shot it right at him. But from a floor perspective, yeah, taking the majority of set pieces, doing a little bit of everything, would have no problem just playing both Spain guys as the biggest favorites on the slate. What do you think?
I played both of them in that last slate. I could absolutely see it again, certainly in cash. Koke's line, like Koke smashed for Koke. And he could, like you said, like he could have had a goal. I don't think he's really allowed to score goals, so that's probably why he didn't get there. But 15.4 in 78 minutes. The minutes are always going to be kind of an issue with him. We know this. It obviously did not matter against Croatia. This game profiles similarly. We don't have De Bruyne to pay up for. So I think, yeah, everybody's going to combine the two of them. The weird thing about this slate is that, and we've talked about it with Italy before, we don't really like many of the Italian midfielders. Like there's no safe floors there. Some of them have scored, you know, the Locatelli scores after we play in the slate before. Barella does the same thing. Jorginho still hasn't gotten his penalty yet, but none of them are really, none of them are cash plays usually unless they're cheap. And one of them, Jorginho is kind of cheap on this slate, but you're not like playing him for a regular floor. We were just talking about how awful Carrasco has been. I don't think people play him in cash. I think he, like Mertens, I think if you played the two of them in GPP, it's great. Like go nuts because they've been horrible and nobody wants to play them. So go play them there. So the Switzerland thing is obviously whether you play Shaqiri, whether you play Zuber, do you get enough of those out of those guys? They're the biggest underdog. So any hesitation on them just pushes you right back to the Spain ones. Like it's almost like you can make your lineup of Italian forwards and Spanish midfielders and try to just work it from there.
Yeah, you could. So Shaqiri, you're right. His salaries come down. He scored 2.7 fantasy points in 73 minutes against France. You know,
the game basically changed when he left.
Right. Switzerland started playing better when he left. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I made the comment in the Discord, they were down 3-1. And I was like, you're down 3-1 and you take off arguably your best attacking player. And we're so much better without him.
That's a good point. So, it just like sort of cements the fact that like Shaqiri, you know, they're not just going to leave him out there. He's been subbed in every game. He hasn't lasted more than 76 minutes yet. And I just don't even see, I don't see much of a floor there against Spain. So for cash, no, I'd much rather go to the Spain guys. And even, okay, so if I was planning on playing both Spain midfielders, I think like a lot of people would be, is it a 3 midfielder slate? Then it brings one of these other midfielders into play. You mentioned Zuber. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to go there for cash, not against Spain. But I think Verratti's kind of interesting. Don't love that he only played 67 minutes against Austria, but 12 fantasy points in that time, 5,200. It's interesting. I don't know. Like to me, I'd just rather have a cheaper guy on a better team than play someone I know who's going to get subbed against Spain. I mean, this is just from a cash perspective. So that's kind of where I'm at. Do you have any, have you had any thoughts about, you know, if you're going to play 3 midfielders or what you're thinking for construction?
Well, you mentioned it at the beginning that defender seems like where we'll probably save money. So using 3 defenders, I mean, it makes some sense, but I don't think a lot of people go there. I jumped at Verratti when I like before I like made lineups, it was like, all right, let me play Verratti. And then I was like, do I play Verratti or Koke? And then it kind of looks like you can play both. So I think for cash, people go that way. It was like Verratti and Koke coming off of those games where they both get 12 to 15 points and play 75 or fewer minutes is just so weird, because the reason we don't play them is the minutes. And the floors are good, but they're not that good. And of course, now recency bias is like, oh no, they should smash again.
Yeah, and you know, for it's 2 games of recency bias for Verratti. I mean, I know it was against Wales, but I think what he had like 15 floor points against Wales. He is like that do everything guy for Italy. He probably doesn't have any set pieces, but that's okay. And I don't think he's guaranteed, you know, to come off at 67 minutes either.
That's true.
So yeah, I don't mind it. It seems okay. It seems like you can count on the floor a little bit. Koke too, like, is he gonna smash like he did in the first game? Yeah, probably not, but still, like 10-point first half floor, like you could see it again, you know, if Spain are just on top the whole time. Yeah, I don't know. I feel safe with those guys, I guess, is my point.
Yeah. I mean, I think if this slate ends up being kind of low scoring, and deeper tournament games tend to be, then the floor matters a lot more, even in tournaments. Like, if you're not going to be able to make it up in goals, then the 12 Koke points are worth a lot more than the 2 to 3 Murata ones without a goal, or Moreno, or whoever.
Right. That's a good point. On these 2-game slates, even for tournaments, when there's not a lot of goals, floors are very important. You're going to have guys in your lineup that don't have goals or assists, and they're going to need to be the highest floor guys. So just looking lower now here for some punts for tournaments. People went to Pedri last slate for 3,800. And he did okay. 8.4 and played all 120 minutes. And also, he would have got the assist had Koke finished his chance. So 3,800 seems, I have no problem taking shots on Pedri.
He's played every minute this tournament.
That's not very nice. Yeah. For 3,800 on the biggest favorite. I mean, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
90, 90, 90, 120.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for when you're paying all the way down. I like taking a shot on Barella too. 4,300 seems like very cheap. I mean, that's a big discount, and he, we know he gets involved in the attack usually more so than the other midfielders. Could definitely score a goal on this slate, and 4,300 is just really cheap. And then I think, you know, gotta mention, you know, you made a great call on the last slate with Granit Xhaka against France. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on him here.
I played 0 Xhaka, and I think he is okay in this. Like, I don't think I play Xhaka over Jorginho. I think we kind of skipped Jorginho.
Oh, yeah.
Probably rightfully in terms of who else we talked about. Jorginho is the reason I hesitated on Verratti, to be honest. And it became more of a positional scarcity thing. Now, locking 2 Spain midfielders in will make that a problem. Like, if you only play one of Sarabia or Koke, you can get another, you know, if you wanted to play, I don't know if you really want to play Verratti and Jorginho, but you could do it if you don't play 2 Spain guys. But his floor has been fine. He plays most of the games. He may have penalties. It's like we keep talking about how Jorginho could have penalties. We still don't know. Like, amazingly, that it feels like there are penalties all over this tournament, and we haven't gotten one from Italy to figure out who's on penalties.
Crazy.
But I think if you're in this range and you're looking for glimmers of upside, Jorginho, I mean, Barella scored, so obviously he can, but I think Jorginho might have like the highest potential upside of anyone in this lower price range.
Yeah, you're right. I skipped over Jorginho, but I will definitely piggyback on all that. I'll take Jorginho over Granit Xhaka. 3,900. You're right. It's a good price. He plays a lot of minutes. He might have penalties. Yeah, I like taking a shot on Jorginho.
What are your thoughts on min price Witsel?
Yeah,
we forgot to mention previously, and somebody in the Discord called us out.
Rightfully so. Min price on the last slate, there wasn't a lot of punt midfield options. He only scored 1 point, so I guess we didn't steer anybody wrong by not calling
we were totally
him right. As far as this slate, no, I can't see myself going to Witsel. I mean, if you got another Belgium player and only 3,000, like maybe, sure, it could happen. But like, I'll change something in my lineup to play Jorginho or Pedri if I'm in that range. I think most of the time, Witzel's going to cost you a slate rather than win you a slate. You know, I hesitate to say stuff like that. You know, and he shows up 5% owned or whatever he's going to be. So sure, but it's not where I'm going to go.
I just think the upside is so limited with him.
Me too.
Even in a matchup, like I think you'd be better off with Busquets at 3,400. And like,
agree, actually, yeah.
Busquets hasn't taken a shot in 25 years, but like I still think there's possible. Even he gets an assist, and I just don't see it with Witsel.
Yeah, and like, glad you brought that up too. Busquets, right, not taking a shot, but he is in there for all their set pieces. That's how he's gotten goals in these tournaments before. So he can get one. We see it all the time. Just ball falls to somebody's feet, or of course he could get on the end of a set piece too.
He's got 3 chances created in 2 games. Those could turn into assists. So
absolutely.
So you mentioned that defenders seem like where you wanted to pay down. Is it because you don't think the more expensive guys, whether it's Jordi Alba or Gaia or Azpilicueta or Llorente, I mean, literally those 4 are the 4 most expensive. The matchup plays into that. But we have them, Spinazzola we've played before, Munier. Yeah. Like, there are guys that we have played before that are in this range.
So yeah, I actually, for tournaments, I want to spend up, on one of these spots. For cash, I mentioned that I thought you could spend down if you wanted to just afford whatever you wanted to afford, because none of these guys have like guaranteed floors. For tournaments, though, I think Alba, Spinazzola, I definitely have interest there. Thomas Meunier, good price, 4,700. I like all those guys for tournaments, but I wanted to ask you about paying up for defender in cash, because they're better than the center backs, but I'm wondering if people are going to make it a priority. Does anyone stand out for you above the others?
No. Simple as that. Like, I think the total lack of set pieces for the Spain guys and the Italy guys and the Belgium guys, I think it's really only Ricardo Rodriguez who would have set pieces in this group. And I actually don't think 4,400 is that bad, because he does a little more in open play. No. We talked about Kevin Mbabu on the last slate. So Mbabu doesn't start, but then I think he came in. Did he come in for Shaqiri? Whatever it was, he ended up on where Shaqiri was. And
he came in for Widmer, I think.
Right. I think Shaqiri came off as well. Like, Mbabu had an assist. Did he have an assist? Now that I've said
Yes, he did. Yes. Good ball.
like a great ball. Like I remember seeing it, and I was like, that's why he should have started. And obviously, thankfully, they're in the first game, so we know. I don't mind Mbabu at 4,000. My guess is that maybe they think he's a little too attacking, and against Spain, it doesn't make as much sense. But he's fun. Like, I like it.
Agree. Totally agree. And that's what I think too. You know, Widmer's a little more defensive, but yeah, like you think Mbabu should be starting. He just offers so much more. And I also agree that one of these Switzerland guys would be okay. And also Thomas Meunier would be okay, because I was, you know, making lineups that had all Italy and Spain, and, you know, you need to fill the 3-team requirement. So doing it maybe with Meunier, Mbabu, Rick Rod, seems okay.
I'll say that, and you just mentioned that, like, Widmer's more of a defensive player than Mbabu is. And I think I played Widmer on the last slate, and as soon as lock happened, I was like, this was a mistake, because I should have played Rick Rod. Like, just move over. Rick Rod wasn't great, but, like, it made sense for Rodriguez to be the guy that moves up on the left side, and Widmer was not going to be the one on the right. I mean, they use Shaqiri over there, and then Mbabu when they actually want to move the ball. So, like, if Mbabu doesn't start, I think Rick Rod gets a little bit of a bump. Obviously, the matchup is the worst one on the slate, but like Switzerland don't seem like they're just going to sit back and take it all. So if once they actually get the ball, I think at those prices, I think those guys are fine.
Yeah, that's a good point. So keep an eye on that lineup, because if Rick Rod playing a little more attacking would definitely make him more appealing. I guess it was okay you faded him on the last slate, or you would have been super tilted by that missed penalty. I don't know if he's going to have penalties anymore. Is that three straight at least?
3 straight. That's really bad.
Right. Not that we're playing him for a penalty anyway, but that's at least in consideration, I guess, when you roster him for tournaments.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I agree with you again. Just good prices. So I guess I said then I was just going to pay all the way down, at least in one spot. Whoever starts for Spain looks okay. Pau Torres or Eric Garcia. Is there anyone else you were considering in this cheap range?
No. And the more... It was less that there was nobody I was considering, and more that I think they're all the same. And so based on lineups, like, we'll just take whoever is there. But the more we talked about how this could be a lower scoring slate and that floors are a little more important, I don't know if a punt center back makes sense anymore.
Yeah, honestly, I was literally just thinking the same thing.
Like, it's not like the floors are that great on the defenders.
No, but
you know, 8, if we can be aggressive from somebody like Meunier or Spinazzola, or, you know, one of the
it's such a good, yeah, I mean, it's such a good point. Like, you might be hurting yourself punting defender. You're right. There are ways you can go, like for instance, if you play Briel and Bolo, you absolutely, I don't think you punt defender. That's, I'm speaking for cash specifically, but even you can win tournaments like this too. But I mean, that's the way you win, by, you know, beating everyone that has a 0 at one of their defender positions. So yeah, really glad you brought that up. I agree. I might not be punting, you know, it depends.
So I learned that from you. So I'll give you full credit for that. But if you just consider the 2v2 for tournaments of Murata and Eric Garcia, or Seferovic and Jordi Alba, if Seferovic and Murata both score, then the 1v1 becomes Alba versus Eric Garcia or Munier or whoever the expensive guy is, Rick Rod.
Yep. No, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. And like, I just got reminded of our podcast, the last podcast before the England-Germany slate. And you said, am I going to pay up at 2 defender positions? And I said, if I liked Luke Shaw more, then I would. And then England came out with 5 at the back after we thought they were going to play 4. And I did. I paid up at both defender positions. I ended up playing 3 defenders on a lot of teams for that slate. It should have worked out. It worked out good. It should have worked out amazing, but Kane got a bailout goal. But yeah, Shaw scored double digits. Trippier smashed. Zinchenko outscored all of them.
Yeah.
I played Kimmich, who didn't get there. But yeah, that strategy really paid off. Similar thing can happen here. All it would take is Italy, Belgium, being 0-0. So yeah, glad you brought that up.
I think the most popular phrase in daily fantasy soccer when talking about results is, I would have smashed if it wasn't for the Kane bailout goal.
It's one of those that happens quite a bit. So
I'll be honest. I pretty much consider any Harry Kane goal a bailout goal. So the dude scores goals all the time, but everyone is a bailout in my opinion. Proves how often I play him.
That one was extra annoying. One guy, only guy we really, maybe you didn't, maybe you mentioned him and I just chose not to hear it, but Cesar Azpilicueta was a popular option on the last slate. And now he's more expensive, and like for me, he's a bit too close in price to Jordi Alba. Obviously, it's not to say he can't score a goal again, but yeah, I prefer going to Alba or Spinazzola, or I don't know. I wanted to give you just a quick chance to talk about Azpilicueta.
So, thank you for doing that, because when he scored, I was tilting my face off because I didn't play him and he scored. So there was a conversation about this in our Discord, and someone brought up that a lot of the sharper players had Azpilicueta in cash. And I started to go on this, like, I think he was a bad cash play because his floor was low. He had like a 4-point floor. And I started going down this path, and then somebody was like, no, he was a cheap fullback for a big favorite. And I'm always somebody who is completely willing to take that as the reason you play somebody. And it was purely spite that I was trying to find holes in it. But when you play a cheap player from a big favorite, you do it because the possibility of a goal is there. And Azpilicueta got it. And yeah, I was dead wrong to try to like find holes in this argument.
Yeah. I went through a similar amount of tilt as you. And then, when you think about it, he was 4,600 for the biggest favorite, which is very cheap. And the other game on that slate had France, where Pavard was more expensive than him in a worse matchup. And the other, they didn't even have a left back, most likely because of injuries. So, yeah, it just made sense. Biggest favorite, cheap price, positional scarcity. So, yeah, it was tilting, but it's understandable.
I think the lesson there, and I didn't speak to everybody that I consider sharp who played him on this, but I think the lesson is sharp players recognize that immediately and just play it. There's no like, oh, I don't know if he'll, what he'll do in the game, or and it's like, no. He's underpriced for being a fullback on a heavy favorite. Let me play him, and I'll take my time on the harder problems on the slate. And
yeah, let me just quickly add so people don't think I'm too much of a donkey. I had him on I had him on 33% of my lineup. So I had exposure, but I was tilted when I saw that he was 41% owned.
Yeah.
So yeah, just add a little bit of credit back.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad we got that out.
Yeah.
So goalkeeper, there's a $1,600 difference between Sommer and Simone in that game. And then Courtois, 4,400, Donnarumma, 5,000. Based on where you can go different ways, I don't think any single one is going to be overly popular. So where do you think people go?
Yeah, I never know. Talking about goalie is always tough. I've been recommending, not even necessarily recommending, I've been going with the expensive keepers in these spots on these 2-game slates. It pays off sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. I don't have much here for goalie. I guess I will, where I'm leaning again is like, if I have the money, I'll play Simon or Simone or whatever. I'll play him if I can, I guess. I'm not really going to make it a priority. It's one of those slates where I'll have exposure to all of the keepers most likely. And just try not to miss out on the one that scores the most points. I know that's like not really saying much. If I was just making one lineup, I guess in these spots, I don't play Jan Sommer because I just think he's going to get scored on, and maybe multiple times. So I would narrow it down that way. And then I would just play a keeper that, made sense in my lineups. If I have a lot of Spain players, play Unai Simon or go all the way down to Courtois, that's fine too. Yeah, so I'll just mix it up. What do you think?
Based on how this conversation has gone, I think Donnarumma should be the guy we play. And it's pretty much because if we don't think De Bruyne plays or doesn't start, we already talked about how horrible Mertens and Carrasco have been. I'm not even sure we said the name Romelu Lukaku. And we absolutely had a long conversation about Axel Witsel, but not Romelu Lukaku. So that's on us. But
sure. Do you want to talk about him for a second?
I think he's not a great play in terms of, projected fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
But, and if everybody is going to try to get Italy forwards or Spanish forwards, you can get a really low-owned Lukaku on this slate. And that's crazy.
Really low-owned. Like his name and price, I don't know.
You're right. 8,000 is cheap.
But, I'm thinking about it. Like, yeah, he's going to be lesser owned. And I feel the same way you do. I love him for tournaments. He's my favorite option on Belgium. Going to play all the minutes, and like he's one of those great players that you just don't mind rostering for 8K on a slate where there might not be a lot of goals. So yeah, just like Lukaku for tournaments. But yeah, finish on Donnarumma. I like where you were going there.
That was pretty much it. It felt like in every position at every price range, we were like, well, you could play this guy from Belgium or this better play from Spain and Italy. So it doesn't even sound like we're playing much Belgium. A Belgium stack, I think, go play Mertens, Lukaku, and Carrasco, and you'll be the only one who plays those three together, and Munier. But if all we talk about are attackers from every team but Belgium, my God, we talked about Seferovic and Embolo, then go play Donnarumma.
Yeah. Again, you convinced me 100%. I'm just thinking about the types of lineups I'm going to make now. Seeing I prefer the Italy side in the matchup against Belgium, and there's only a $600 difference between those keepers. I'm going to have more Italy in my teams. So yeah, prefer Donnarumma also.
I think it also is more about the Donnarumma pick is more about who you're not playing than who you're playing. Like if you wanted to play both Spain fullbacks, I don't think that means you have to play Simone. Like those guys could be fine, but they could also concede, and the fullbacks are fine, but Simone is dead. And so,
that's a good point too. A lot of time, well, yeah, I used to make that mistake where if I was playing like one of those expensive fullbacks, I'd for sure want to pair him with the keeper. But you're right, I don't think you need to do that. I think, if, we don't want to play Belgium because of no KDB and we don't trust these other guys, you just end up going to Donnarumma.
Right.
And I mean, like he allowed his first goal in 12 games, like last game. So seems all right to me. Italy's looked great and they don't give up much.
Yep. I think it's as simple as that. Of course, Austria is the team that like breaks through.
Right, and it was very late on, and sometimes extra time.
Yep. Cool. All right. If anybody has any follow-up questions for me or Ryan, you can find us in the RotoWire Discord, which is open for all subscribers. Just go to rotowire.com/chat to get in there. If you are not a RotoWire subscriber and would like to try us out for free for 10 days, just go to rotowire.com/soccer trial, get you access to the entire site, as well as that subscriber Discord chat. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you could please hit the like button below, because apparently that matters a lot. And if you're listening to the audio version, if you could please rate and review it wherever you listen. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about Saturday's two-game slate, which is Czech Republic, Denmark, and Ukraine, England. And then obviously we'll be looking forward to seeing what DraftKings does next week, because we've got the semifinals on 2 different days. My guess is 2 huge showdowns, but we'll see. Ryan, thank you for that, and good luck tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Good luck, everybody.